Smart24 Driving Business.
Hello, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for watching Smart24 TV. My name is Anthony Sebale. Remember, this is The Point, and we discuss topics, of course, here that are relevant to our economy and get those discussions out of the boardrooms to your viewership so we can suggest solutions that can be able to drive our economy onwards, and especially looking at the different sectors that have very enormous impact on our economy. Now, to be able to be part of the show, you can follow us on Twitter. We are at Smart24 TV, and you can also get to our YouTube live stream, that is at Smart24 TV Live, and get through the comment section and give us some feedback. We'll definitely get to appreciate that. And of course, today we are talking about one of the biggest sectors in the economy. And according to World Bank, it contributes 70%, though that hasn't been changing since a couple of years back. And this is none other than the agricultural sector. Now, looking at the agricultural sector today, we are, of course, looking into the agro-processing side. And according to a certain report that was released a couple of years back, about 80% of Uganda's population as well is employed in the agricultural sector. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of loopholes in our agro-processing side, and there has been a lot of inputs by government in terms of efforts to try to enhance production, incentivize farmers, and try to promote exports from the country. However, these have been curtailed by a couple of factors, such as our products being rejected on the international market, our products, of course, not having enough, meeting the standards, especially of the global markets like the United States, the European markets, and the like. But also, the local consumption has been also quite in question, with several parts of the country actually starving. We've just had stories of Karamoja starving, and this is a country where we say 70% of us are employed in agriculture and 80% of our land is arable, but a whole region going to starvation. Where is the problem, and how are we going to address this? And today, joining me to discuss this wonderful topic is none other than Miss Dorothy Kimuli Gwegwe, who is the MD of D&M International, which has a subsidiary called KIMS. Now, these are focusing on chili and adding value to our chili and actually exporting to different countries. And is going to be sharing with us a little bit more about that. We also have Mr. Paul Rukundo, who is coordinator of the Ugandan side of the East African Youth Network, which is an umbrella organization and the youth organizations here in East Africa that ensures the youth are part of the East African community integration. But also, he is an, should I call him CEO? Yes. Or managing director of Itemba Agro Fresh. They export avocado, pineapple, and something called garden egg. Yeah, sure. Fresh vegetables to different parts of the world. And definitely that means they have a lot to add to our discussion. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
I'll start ladies first. Mr. Rukunda, I hope you won't be offended. Miss Kimuli, Mrs. Kimuli, rather, you are an exporter. You are part of the business. You're not exporting yet.
Not yet.
Oh, absolutely. Now that's interesting. Probably you're looking into exports in the future, which is quite interesting. But talk to us about the status quo when you look at Uganda's agro-processing. First of all, our farmers out there, or even the public, sometimes they don't, or they do draw a line between agribusiness and agro-processing. Do you think this is something that holds, or actually, when you talk about agro-processing, we are talking about something outside agribusiness?
First, you've
talked to me, you've asked me about the status quo of the agro-processing sector in Uganda, and I must say that the industry is still young. We have not yet grown to those levels that would warrant registering success. And when it comes to agro-processing and agribusiness, they are married. You cannot talk about agro-processing without business, and you cannot talk about business in terms of agriculture without talking about agro-processing. So there is a marriage between the two. The farming part, the agro-processing part along the value chain, and as well the business. Here we are talking about the market. We are talking about the money from the processing part. So when we look along the chain of farming, of processing, and of the business, we are still a struggling market. I will not say that over the years we can say that we are where we want to be, but we are still finding our way in terms of getting where we want to be, having all parties involved.
Wow. Well, talking about the agro-processing bit as well, what, in terms of a definition, what could you define agro-processing as?
Now, agro-processing is basically value addition. Value addition from farm output into something, into a product that is refined, that is better, that is more longer lasting, that has probably more flavor, more taste, that is more appealing, because you come from a product that is raw. I'll give an example of a tomato. A tomato comes in its fresh form that will probably not last a week, but then again, you process it, in other words, put it through an industry, put it through machinery, put it through a packaging process where it can be on the market for 1 year, for 2 years, depending on the availability of the kind of packaging materials that we have.
Interesting. Mr. Rukundo, Ms. Dorothy here defines agro-processing in terms of value addition. You are part of this business of actually exporting fresh vegetables, fresh avocado, and so on. What would you define agro-processing as? And from your own experience, what is the status quo when we talk about agro-processing in Uganda?
Now, thank you so much, Anthony. For me, as someone who has been in the business for now, like 3 years, 4, just like Dorothy said, the sector is still young. When we talk of agro-processing, of course, we are looking at what value are we adding to the already existing products, and also how are we producing some of our products. If you produce, for example, in the sector of coffee, we are producing coffee and we are exporting coffee beans. The value we are adding, it's not that significant, because when you harvest your coffee, you process it, you have the beans, then you export. The beans are processed to make the coffee we consume. So for me, that's the direction that the country should be taking, and that's what we are not doing. Because we are producing coffee, adding a little small value, then exporting beans. Beans are again processed and actually sold back in the country. Then we pay more for the beans we actually produced here. So for me, I think as a country, we haven't really done much in trying to add value. So in the area of agro-processing, we haven't really done much. But I will say that there is hope, because I have seen government, putting in efforts to rally some exporters, some farmers, some business people to see how best can we really improve this area of agro-processing so that we add value to the products we export. For example, also in my area, because for me, generally, I'm also part of the system that does not add value to some of these products. But the little value I add is when I collect these products from the gardens. The value we add is we do cleaning, we sort, so that we pick the best that can be exported. It is also part of value addition, because the product we get from the garden, we don't export it the way it is. So even cleaning, sorting, packaging, we also qualify it to be value addition. But you see, the value we are adding, or the agro-processing we are adding is so basic. It's so basic. It is not that, serious that can really push our products to compete in the international markets. So for me, in general, I think we are just doing the basics, the basic things in improving what we produce as a country in terms of these agricultural products. So for me, that's how I may look at the agro-processing industry and the things we are doing. And this is why I really want us to pick from, and we really make sure that we really get serious and add some, and mechanize this area. Mechanize it also, try to process this coffee so that we also export coffee that is processed, that is ready to be consumed. And I'm sure it will really add more money or more income to our economy. Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Kibuli, I think you mentioned a very good point there. We pick the best for export. I don't know what the rest does, but probably goes on our market here in Uganda. But I don't want to believe that. Now, when you look at the challenges Uganda is facing currently, one of them is unemployment. Over 87% of our young people are either unemployed or they're employed informally in insecure jobs. And yet we call ourselves a country that's 70% agricultural and the sector employing over 80%. What do you think is still lacking for us to tap into this agro-processing space? Because when I look at job creation and the challenges that currently we are facing, one of the things that could address them is probably agriculture, but it's not doing that, right? Many young people are still unemployed and the problem still stands in the room. So according to you, what do you think we can do to tap into some of these benefits? And what are even the benefits when we talk about agro-processing? What the value addition, what can it do in order to see that we improve the economy here in Uganda?
In terms of the benefits that agro-processing has, both to the nation, to the individuals, and to all other stakeholders, is that I will bring it down to what Uganda as a nation is. Uganda as a nation is an agroeconomy. We are agriculturalists. We have the land. We have the opportunity to utilize that land. So the fact that that is who we are presents a significant opportunity for us as Ugandans to tap into that market to transform our lives. Secondly, the opportunity we have is very visible, not only to the Ugandans, but to other global citizens. Because like my fellow business person here said, he's into the export market of fresh goods. If he is able to export, that means that those that are receiving the Ugandan goods have seen the value that the market in Uganda has, and they are tapping into it faster than us. So that is the opportunity that the nation presents that we Ugandans have not yet seen, and yet it's a very raw and rich opportunity for us as individuals, for us as citizens, and as a nation to this country. Secondly, we must know where our strength lies and where our income must come from as a nation. And it presents the increased incomes. That's an opportunity that the sector presents, right from the farmer to the processor, to the middleman, and to the consumer. So there are very diverse opportunities that this sector has to present to the Ugandans. And when we look at the global perspective, we are talking about the Global Sustainable Development Goals, to which Uganda is part of. And if we are supposed to achieve that agenda by 2030 in terms of eradicating poverty, in terms of increased incomes, in terms of improved standards of living, there is no way we are going to reach there without the acknowledgement of the fact that agriculture will take us there. And one of the ways it can take us there is industrializing this sector. And the only way we can industrialize this sector is through agro-processing. Then when it comes to the realization, have we tapped into this sector sufficiently? We have not tapped into this sector sufficiently. And why haven't we tapped into this sector sufficiently? First, I will go by what you earlier mentioned. You said that for the most part, we are 70% agriculture-based, and over 85% of the youth in Uganda have tapped into agriculture. But when it comes to the 70% we are talking about, for as long as I have been involved in the agricultural discussions, both on a national level, in terms of the national reference groups that I have attended, for the last 15 years, we have sung about 70%. You cannot talk of 70% in 2000. And then in 2005, you're talking of 70%. Even in 2023, we are talking about 70%. Hasn't there been any change, either on the lower level or higher level? Why are we dwelling on the 70%? Meaning that there is an aspect of this industry that is lacking. People are enjoying the comfort of chairs and offices instead of going out there on ground and establishing to what extent are we 70%? Because figures must change, meaning that research and development is a gap that is lacking. We are not doing sufficient research and development to update the national information to make informed decisions, because the people that are supposed to make these decisions for us are still basing on percentages that were created decades ago. Secondly, we are not tapping in why. It is always said that experience is the best teacher. And we learn through experience. If we say that agriculture or agro-processing is what is going to industrialize this nation and lead us to better standards of living for all and improved incomes, who is the driver of this agenda? How experienced is the driver of this agenda to realize the purpose to which it can transform this nation? And when I talk about this, I'm talking about government institutions. I am talking about all private institutions and all partners at all levels. Because it's one thing to come and make an argument, but it's one thing to have experience in regard to the argument you are advancing. Because if you have the experience, then you will have the wisdom and the desire to drive that agenda. But you find that there is a lot of talk, there is a lot of discussion, and yes, I know policies are being formulated, but the issue is, are they being implemented to guarantee the success that we are looking at? And I'll give you a very clear example. Right now, Uganda is advancing the export agenda. My colleague is exporting. I remember I went to a ministry one day, I will not mention the details, and one of the things I tried to advance was the packaging industry in Uganda as a limitation to our achievements. And this particular person in responsibility, who was entrusted with the national responsibility of trade, tells me, you know what, you should accept the state of affairs in Uganda today, because that's where we are. We cannot do much. What kind of mindset is helping advance this interest? You get it? Because if I get such a response, I'm seeking to see how I can improve, how I can make better, and possibly highly contribute to the national growth. And I'm being told I should accept things as they are, and live with things as they are, and manage my affairs with things as they are. And you tell me this issue, for instance, the packaging industry has been on the tables of discussions for over a decade plus. But why isn't there improvement? Why must I travel? Give an example. Haynes is bringing its products in plastics. Wherever Haynes comes from, do they accept Ugandan products in plastics?
Most probably not.
No. Rwanda brings, say, a Kawanga, it's in plastics. Does Rwanda accept plastics?
No.
So what kind of agreements are we making that are not favorable to our nation? Why would we accept the plastics, yet our plastics are not accepted? And yet they tell us to be able to significantly export, you must have it in glass. And the authority is telling me, for me to have glass, I must travel to China or India, bring in that glass, package my product and export it. How expensive will it be? Will it be sold? Will it be competitive? Will I make the money? Will Uganda make the money that desires to cause that kind of transformation? So I think we need to look at competitive advantages when it comes to this. We need to look at our strength, and we need to see how much more we can invest in that strength to realize the significant impact to take this nation to that level that everyone says it should be at in 2030.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Dorothy. Mr. Rukundo, Ms. Dorothy here makes very, very strong points, especially when it comes to concerning the issue of land. He says we have a lot of arable land here, and according to the Food Agriculture Organization, 80% of our land is arable, but we've only been able to use 35% for production, agriculture-wise. And statistics also are aggravated by the fact that we have people still in Uganda who are starving. Yes, you're an exporter, and that's very, very good and very interesting, but we still have an issue of, you know, the local market as well. And then she points out the issue of the packaging industry, for example, that is still weak compared to what we are expected to put out there on the market. In your view, as an exporter, you know, who has experienced, you know, this kind of thing, what do you think is holding us back in as far as agro-processing is concerned?
Thank you so much. I think I will really start with the packaging, because it is also one of the challenges we face as exporters. And because for example, some of the, when you look at these markets that are actually, you know, very serious into this business, talk of the EU, talk of UK, they are so intentional when it comes to packaging. And you find that we even go beyond our borders to look for packaging materials for these, you know, agricultural products. So you find that the money invested in actually procuring the packaging materials, they're even expensive than the product itself. Yeah. So which affects the pricing and it pushes you out of the market because you can't compete. So the packaging industry is one of the areas that we need to invite investors to really put money in. If we can't really, as a country, find ways of improving it, but it is one of the areas that we need to look at. Because I remember I had a client in EU who wanted some of these products, but when he looked at our packaging, it was like, until we handle this area of packaging, we may not do business. Even when you're looking at the transportation channels, you find that the packaging, the materials we use are so weak. So by the time the product is taken from here up to EU, maybe the packaging has been altered and the product loses the quality, and the standard also goes down.
But don't, Mr. Rukundo, sorry to interrupt, but don't we have packaging industries? I've seen so many industrial parks around, and you see, just giving a few examples, they make plastics, some make, you know, packaging materials in paper form. Don't we have already enough, or the demand is actually much more stringent?
Yeah, I agree they are there, because most of the packaging materials we use are from here. But the question is, are your materials matching the required standard at international level? Because if you make a box here, yes, you have made a box, but when you take it to UK, can it really compete with the boxes in UK? Because really we are now open. We are not saying that we are Uganda, you are UK. No, we are selling products. So the buyers expect, when you enter supermarket, you expect to see a product from Uganda also competing, like, because trade mainly is about what you see. When you see a product, you get attracted to it. So if your packaging material is not really attractive compared to these other who are also bringing their products, then you are out of the market. You can't easily sell your product because it is not packaged, it is not appealing. So that's also a challenge. Then for me, another area that I wanted also to look at, connected to what Dorothy was talking about, some of the agreements we make with these countries to sell our products. I understand there are some, you know, international standards, international certifications which are in place. Because, for example, you export chili from here, you take it to UK. The tests have been done on that particular product. But when it reaches to the other market, they do again other tests, and the products are confiscated. Yet we say that we have international standards, certifications, talk of the GAPs, the good agricultural practices, talk of the GATS as well, the general agreements of trade and tariff, the phytosanitary and sanitary certifications. So if a product is certified here using the international standard, why would it be confiscated after reaching the other market? Yet they're also applying the same standard. So you realize that here what we are doing, there is a lot of we are Ugandans actually. Like when people normally say, we always forego some serious things that really will affect us in the future. So for me, what I'm saying is that for us to compete favorably, to improve our sector, we must make sure that these systems work. We must make sure that the policies and the procedures in place work. And I recently we had a discussion, and one of the areas we are looking at, we looked at some of the existing policies and laws that needed to be reviewed or amended. Because we have a food safety law of 1964. It is the one that is being applied here, 1964. We are in 2003. How many years are those? A lot has changed. So we need to look at some of those laws, the policies, and make amendments and adjust to meet the dynamics that are in place now. We talk of the animal feeds bill that is in place that has been shelved. We also need to look at it so that we can also help these people who are in livestock industry to be able to also export meat.
Right there, Mr. Rukundo.
Yeah.
We are going to take a very short breather and we return briefly. Today we are talking agro processing, value addition to our agricultural products and how that is going to contribute to our economy and gross domestic product. I'm with Mr. Rukundo and Mrs. Dorothy. We are going to take a very short break, but when we return, some of the challenges Mr. Rukundo is pointing out have been, of course, highlighted in the last few years. Aflatoxins in our maize, our paper was banned, self-banned. Actually, we had a self-imposed ban on our paper here in Uganda. We're talking more about what can we do to meet the standards. Standards have become quite an issue, and I think we need to work towards that. My name is Anthony. Remember to hit us up on Twitter and get to follow the show. We return shortly. Stay with us.